Very good, excellent. Well, welcome everybody, a very, very warm welcome, and very excited to have your company today on this seminal day, because we are today issuing some very incredibly important research. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Julia Streets. I'm the founder and the CEO of Streets Consulting. And I just start my remarks immediately by turning to Philip Hammond this morning. I don't know how many of you were in the library when you heard him speaking about the need to support more scale-ups. Now, we know for a fact that there are amazing scale-ups across this nation. And we know that because as a business, we've been working with scale-ups for 16 years now across the UK and also around the world. But also we've been immensely proud to be collaborating with and working with FinTech clusters and ecosystems around the country. And if any of you have never got on a train and gone beyond the boundaries of the City of London, I'm afraid you are missing out, because there is phenomenal enterprise and innovation happening right across the country. And we deeply, deeply believe that we have got to shine a light on these incredible success stories. There's so much that we can learn from each other and the successful businesses that are powering this nation. And we also really need to understand the true dynamics at play. It's very easy to sit around the edges and make observations. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I know what it's like to run my company, but to make some easy observations about what it's really like to scale a company. So we really wanted to get into the heart of that. And to answer this question, we commissioned some research, and it's about how do we enable more fintechs to successfully scale in the UK. Now, many of you will know Whitecap Consulting. If you don't, you must get to know them immediately, because they do two really key things. One of them is they are a growth consulting firm. So they work with organizations, helping them to drive growth, understand the dynamics of growth, and to support them in that growth. But also, in my opinion, they are the go-to people for research about the fintech ecosystems and the fintech industry across the UK as well. So we're exceptionally proud to be collaborating with Whitecap Consulting, forgive me. Would you like to go into capital? Would you now an investment firm? Should be, in my opinion. Whitecap Consulting. But we also really wanted in our collaborations for this to truly, deeply matter. And we know that the National FinTech Network matters very much to Innovate Finance. And this collaboration between three parties is a great opportunity to celebrate, to understand, and to support the national network and the tireless, focused, and incredibly successful entrepreneurs who are driving economic growth and inspiring young next generations of talents coming through the organization. And also playing a really vital role in celebrating and championing the fintech industry on an international scale as well. And in fact, I know that the chair of the next panel is hot foot from New York, where she's been talking about some of the incredible work that's been happening in her region. More on that in a second. So to Innovate Finance, thank you for collaborating. Thank you for giving us this platform on your 10th anniversary, and also for all your guidance and support in pulling this research together. Because I believe that we are truly a perfect partnership and alignment of vision, of strategy, and also execution to support scale-ups. And I don't think it is any coincidence that this research this morning has been focused in the Scotsman, it is in the FinTech press, and there is a lot more press coverage to follow as well, and also all over social media. So please do support, champion, amplify, because that is really what this is all about. Now, having taken a moment to talk about Whitecap and also to talk about Innovate Finance, I wonder if I could cheekily tell you a little bit about Streets Consulting. Now, what we do, as I mentioned, is we've been working with scale-ups for 16 years. And we know that right now, all our clients think about is either growth and or transformation. So we help them because we're a strategic business development and marketing consultancy. But we focus on three key areas, what we call our 3 Cs. So one is campaigns. So it's all about driving profile, driving sales campaigns, traditional campaigns, digital campaigns, all about driving growth. The second is creating great content, because we know that content drives and fuels campaigns. But the third thing that I think makes us really different is coaching. We never forget the humans in the mix. So that's everything from senior level executive coaching, now working with leadership teams as they're bringing up their next talent, level of talent, thinking about boot camps, and then also democratizing coaching for wider populations of their talent and their staff coming through. So that's more than enough about the collaboration. That's certainly more than enough about me. Let's get straight into the research. And of course, there is only one person. We all know this, right? There's only one person who could present the research today. And of course, he's the director of FinTech at Whitecap Consulting, Julian Wells.
Thanks, Julia. Morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this session. We really appreciate it. At Whitecap, Julia's introduced us. I'm not going to redo that, but we're deeply immersed in regional fintech, and we're really proud to launch this report in partnership with Consulting and Innovate Finance today. I'm going to talk you through the findings, and then Julia's going to wrap things up. I'll just set the scene a little bit to say, what have we done? We've analysed data from 250 regionally based fintech companies across the UK. Those organisations are based across England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. They are all what we've classed as scale-ups. The way that we've categorised them as scale-ups is that they have more than 624,000 of reported revenues but less than 25 million. We've drawn the data from this sample from multiple sources, including publicly available and then proprietary research that Whitecap's been conducting over recent years as part of the work we've done in reporting on different regional fintech ecosystems. The sample was really interesting when we broke it down, and some of the findings also very interesting. From these 250 firms, I'm going to stand on the side here so that I can keep the noise going while I look at the slide. Nearly 60% of them were based in cities. The other sort of 40+% were based regionally. The vast majority were B2B organisations, which we found from all of our regional research is very typical. FinTech is a very B2B orientated sector. And if you add up the B2B and the B2C there, you get to 8. Well, it actually adds up to 87% because of the rounding. The firms themselves, 14 years old on average. The founders were 51 years old on average now, but when the time the businesses started, they would have been 38. We know that that's not unusual in fintech. Fintech founders do tend to be a little bit older than what you maybe think of as a typical startup entrepreneur. They quite often come into starting a fintech business through a deep understanding of a problem or an issue within financial services. On average, these firms had 41 employees. They're not small businesses. You know, these are businesses that have scaled up. I can't stress that enough. This is not an analysis of startups. This is scale-up businesses. We looked at it through 3 lenses, and whenever we talk about what do fintechs need to succeed, and we do this all the time at fintech conferences right around the UK, we talk about people, we talk about money, and we talk about market. And if you're going to build a successful fintech company, you need that. You need great people in your team. You need money. Either you've got that money yourself and you self-generate it, or you need to go find it from someone else. And you need a market, you need customers, you need partners, you need a route via which you can drive up revenue, because that's what businesses need in order to scale. So when we looked at those 3 things, and I'll take them each in turn, people, we found some fantastic stats here, I have to say. We didn't go looking for stats, particularly on certain areas, but the female founders point was the standout point of our research. When we looked at who'd founded fintech companies, we looked at all male teams versus teams where there was at least one female founder within the team. And those that had female founders grew more than 30% in terms of turnover, more than those that were male-only teams. And that's not a revelation, because there's loads of research around why it's important to have diverse founding teams and diverse teams. But that's a fintech scale-up validation on a regional basis. The other thing we found is that fintech firms with multiple founders grow faster. They grow faster in terms of their turnover, and they grow faster in terms of their revenue. So the more founders you have, we only looked as high as 4, but the better you perform, and I'll show you that on the slide in a second. In terms of money, we looked at those firms that raised money versus those that didn't, and on average, if you do raise funding, you will experience higher employee growth and higher revenue growth. But what we noted in the data was that the growth of employees was proportionally higher than the growth in revenue. That changes when you get past a certain point. Once you've raised more than 2.5 million, the revenue growth starts to really kick in, and there's more detail on that in the report. Don't have more on that in these slides. We found that payments and wealth tech were the two most prominent segments when you look at what sectors of FinTech these firms are operating in, but we looked at a whole load of other sectors as well. And there was an interesting stat with PropTech. So 9 of the 250 PropTech firms, 9 of the 250 scale-ups we looked at were PropTechs, and all 9 of them had successfully raised funding. So they had 100% fundraising success. I talked about B2B earlier on, so I'm not going to go back into that. We did find that that firms in lending, banking, insurtech, money management, and wealth tech enjoy the strongest revenue growth. There was an interesting point around B2C firms, and I'm going to come to that on a slide because I've actually got it in data. This is the data on the diversity of founders. So what we did is we took the I should shout out my colleague Josh, actually. Where is he? Josh, yeah. Josh did all the data here, so he's our guru on these things. We took how long the firms have been trading for and what the revenues were, and we did a simple division to work out what their average revenue was per year. And you can see this is where we get 30% more revenue growth for these firms that included a female founder. More founders equals more growth. I talked about this earlier. This is a table from the report. Number of founders down the left-hand side. As you can see, the highlighted blue cells show which was the biggest number. So most firms where we could identify the founders were sole founders. But the more founders you have, the better the performance gets. And you can see along the bottom that if you've got 4 founders, you get the best performance in everything. The success in raising funding, the average turnover growth, and the average employee growth as well. Earlier on, I talked about the B2B and how FinTech's a very B2B orientated sector. We know from talking to investors that it's harder to get a B2C FinTech firm funded at the moment, that's a difficult ask from investors. But our data shows something really interesting, which is that if you do get funding into B2C businesses and you do scale them, they will be more successful on average than B2B firms. Again, that's the picking apart the data. The column around the line, around average amount of funding, you can see B2C only firms and B2B and B2C achieved more than twice the average amount of funding for B2B only FinTech firms. But also the annual revenue growth is far in excess for those that have a B2C element to their model, and also the employee turnover growth is the employee growth, not employee turnover. So there's a message there that if you get it right with B2C, it can really be very successful and can scale up. As part of this report, so we analysed these 250 firms, and they're, like I said, they're based from across the UK. What we don't provide in the report is regional breakdown of where the firms are all based. So there's no regional dynamics here. It is intended to be a unified message across regional FinTech for the UK. Of these, these are the stats around regional FinTech growth. But we supplemented it by talking to 10 FinTech entrepreneurs and chief execs and founders who've grown some of these businesses that are part of the data. And that added another level of richness to the report. And there's a lot of quotes. Each of them has about half a dozen quotes throughout the report. And they make for really interesting reading. They were fascinating interviews to conduct, I have to say. And I know at least a couple of those entrepreneurs are here today. So thank you very much for your time. So that's a very high-level overview of report findings. You can find everything on in the report itself, which is live today. I'm going to hand back to Julian now, who's also going to summarise some of those things that those 10 FinTech entrepreneurs told us, and also sort of address the question of what does it mean and what needs to happen. Julian.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause for Julian. I think absolutely. There we go. Thank you. I couldn't resist, Julian. I couldn't resist. Yes, indeed. And I just also want to do a very quick shout out because we've had so many stakeholders have come behind the research. When you download this research, we'll have a QR code so you could do that. You'll see the number of leaders and spokespeople and stakeholders in the industry who have really got behind this research as well. So I guess the question is, what have we learned? So this is what the entrepreneurs told us. So first of all, they found a problem that they understood, and they were motivated to solve it. And of course, there is this interesting dynamic of the sole founder who understood the problem and was motivated to solve it versus the multiple founders. So I think it's quite interesting to observe that. It is a combination for them of knowledge, motivation, and experience that is going to drive and does drive their relentless appetites to be successful and to scale up the company. So finding the problem they understood, motivated to solve. The other thing that we've learned from this is it took longer to grow their business than was expected. One of the findings from this was that the business plans were perhaps a little overly ambitious, and that also that many entrepreneurs had to pivot from their original idea when they got started as well. The third thing we learned was they found the right people, eventually, in some cases, and really fought to keep them. And they started quite often with some quite experienced hires, but then also subsequently hired talented people, perhaps with less industry knowledge, but they recognized that they could grow with the business. And also bringing in incentivizing employees with share schemes in order to boost that retention as well. That was a finding that we had there, which we've learned from. The other is they all, or many of them, this doesn't apply to every single person interviewed, but many of them wish they had found a way to generate revenue earlier. And this is really interesting. I talk a lot to entrepreneurs, and they are finding, particularly in this climate right now, that they are looking to find ways to generate revenue quickly, even if this is not from their fully developed target suite of products and services. And also the other thing they told us was that their branding and their marketing are a really key function for gaining the trust of their larger firms, particularly when they're doing enterprise-size deals and getting scale in B2B as well. The fifth learning was they took a very sensible approach to fundraising. Raising investment wasn't seen, as somebody described it, as a badge of honor. It was acknowledged that external funding can, of course, drive accelerated growth, but the entrepreneurs also urged caution about chasing large valuations, taking too much funding, and losing control of the business. And then the last was that technology was not deemed to be their USP. Most of the fintechs did not consider this to be unique. Their technology was not necessarily unique. What characterized them was a strong in-house technological architecture, which allows agility and adaptability in respect of embracing and dynamic new technologies as well, particularly when we think about this right now and bringing others in as well. Now, again, these themes were not true for all of the fintechs, but the majority holds true for each of them as well. So we hope that those key learnings are useful. The other is what needs to happen. Now, for the entrepreneurs themselves, some key points here. One of them is it's all about vocation, not location. What you do and how you do it will define your success, not your physical location of your business. The second thing for the entrepreneurs was do not go it alone. FinTech firms with multiple founders are clearly, and the evidence shows this, more likely to successfully scale. And ensure gender diversity. I think the data speaks for itself today. Firms with more than one female founders outperform male-only founder teams. So take that into your learning. And then the last was also join an accelerator. Companies that were part of an accelerator raised investment more successfully. The coaching, the guidance, the contacts, the mentorship can provide real value and assistance as organizations seek to scale. And then we couldn't just make it just about the entrepreneurs. What about the investors, the policymakers, and indeed the wider fintech industry? 3 key learnings there. Number 1 is think nationally. The analysis clearly shows that location does not matter, although being in a city, as Julian was saying earlier, has a positive impact on your growth. The second thing that came through loud and clearly is reduce risk for entrepreneurs. And there was a definite clarion call for more support being required in terms of tax relief schemes and also access to funding. And then the third point, which again we've already raised and has come into the wider community, is the question of diversity. Diversity in fintech leadership. We need more initiatives to build on the new government task force to create dedicated funding for female-founded businesses and to provide support for other challenges faced by female entrepreneurs. So let's close there and give you the QR code to find the research. As we say, it is rich with insights and also interviews and quotes from the entrepreneurs. We hope you enjoy reading it. Do please notify others, follow us on social media, follow us in the press. And this isn't just the beginning. Actually, today is the first whistle, as we describe it, or my colleague Andrew Dunn, who's driving the campaign, describes it. This is the first whistle, and we're going to go into a post-IFGS momentum campaign, so this won't be the last you see of us at all. Now, what we'd really love to do now is to turn the stage to some of those entrepreneurs and to talk about the industry and what this is really like from a practitioner's point of view. A couple of things we need to do is, one is encourage you to stay, if you would. There's going to be a little bit of a handover while we just reset the stage so that you can hear from those entrepreneurs. So please do stay with us, and very, very shortly we will be starting that session. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us this morning. Julian, thank you for the research. On behalf of Streets Consulting, Whitecap Consulting, and also Innovate Finance, thank you for your interest, and please do tell everyone, because we know that regional scale-ups make a massive difference and have a huge impact on the economy of the UK. Thank you.